For a month after the Gulf oil spill last April, no one really knew how bad it was. There wasn't much to see on the surface. Then a team of scientists detected gigantic 30-mile-long underwater oil plumes larger than Manhattan. Well, today, as BP sought to radically downsize government estimates of how much oil was actually spilled, members of that same team went down in a submarine, and they invited our Matt Gutman to go along.
We headed out to the spot closest to the oil spill for a submarine ride to the Gulf floor.
It's 4:30 in the morning. We're about to get into this pickup. We got everything loaded up. Scott, is a rendezvous like this at sea common?
No, it's not. When you get offshore and it's a little rough, everything tends to be a lot more dangerous.
Then we're off.
Pretty cold on this here boat, going about 40 or 50 miles an hour.
Roger that, Roger.
Just a couple of miles that way is where the BP rig sank, and technically it's still a crime scene.
Pretty cozy in here.
The water laps over the hull as we rocket downwards 5,000 feet. We should be seeing a cacophony of life here, with creatures dreamed up for a sci-fi movie. But on this moonscape,
there's nothing crawling around on the surface of the bottom. It's just worm tubes that are collapsed over.
Dr. Mandy Joy, an oceanographer, is leading a National Science Foundation expedition to the heart of this spill and the grave of many a sea creature.
There's a lot of dead worms on the bottom. Jesus.
We course through the water like some alien body. Inside this titanium sphere, we're bundled up against the cold. Temperatures inside plummet to about 40 degrees. It's about the size of a car's interior, cramped.
So this is where the pilot would sit, and he'd be kind of scrunched up against this little tiny window there, looking in there. There he is right now, Sean. This is not a very convenient place to be if you're tall.
But it offers an unparalleled view of the destruction to the area near the site of the spill.
Oil is a complex mixture of different components, and you can sort of make an analogy of eating, chocolate versus cardboard. The chocolate's going to get eaten pretty quickly. The cardboard, not so much.
It looks like a blizzard hit this spot. It's called oily fluff, and it's thick.
That looks like about 3 or 4 inches of material.
It's not exactly oil, but oily material. Our pilot, Sean, uses these robotic arms to deploy dozens of so-called push cores. They stuff them into the seabed, then pull out a core sample to see what's inside this mud. You can actually see the oil smudging in the tubes. We turned on the ultraviolet light, and look at this. Those phosphorescent ink blots, all oil. And 5,000 feet down, it looks like these sea fans and coral are powdered with this oily material. Joy and the other scientists dispute a government report that the vast majority of the oil has dissipated.
It sank, and it's still there, and it's going to degrade very slowly.
How slowly?
Years to decades.
BP is now trying to challenge the government's best guess for how much oil the company's well spilled into the Gulf, believed to be over 170 million gallons.
They're saying you guys overestimated it by 50%. That's tremendous.
Well, if they thought that was a problem, why weren't they more forthcoming all along and getting good data?
Ian McDonald is an oceanographer at Florida State University.
Why weren't they?
Well, because they want to be able to, it's in their interest to be able to obscure what the discharge rate was now because of the legal jeopardy they find themselves in.
A new government estimate on how much oil spilled could save the British company billions in fines. BP responded that, given all the uncertainty surrounding the flow, a reliable estimate of the flow rate over time should account for all of the relevant factors, like the fact that part of the oil may have been constricted from coming out by the twisted well itself. Regardless, the result down here is the same. But catching a glimpse of this devastation in person is invaluable, and at times, magical. Finally, after 10 hours, leg cramps, frozen toes, the light. And in the dimming sunlight, a handshake awaits, your shoes, and a chance to stretch your legs.
Good to be on land.
And for the newly initiated to this small group of people who've been to the bottom and back, an ice bath. Woo! A submariner's rite of passage. For Nightline, I'm Matt Gutman, aboard the Atlantis research vessel, Gulfport, Mississippi.